In a small town in New Mexico, far from the noise of big cities, Daniel Carter sat alone in the observatory. It was late at night, and the only sounds were the hum of machines and the occasional sip of his now cold coffee. Daniel had always been fascinated by the stars. For years, he spent his nights scanning the skies, searching for anything unusual. Tonight, however, something extraordinary happened. As Daniel analyzed data from a deep space telescope, he noticed something strange. A faint signal, almost like a pulse, appeared on his screen. At first, he thought it might be interference or a glitch. But the more he studied it, the more certain he became it wasn't random. The signal repeated in a pattern, like a code. It felt deliberate, as if someone, or something, was trying to communicate. Daniel's heart raced. He checked and rechecked his equipment to make sure it wasn't a mistake. Once he was confident the signal was real, he called Rachel Monroe, a linguist who specialized in decoding messages. Rachel lived hours away, but she agreed to come immediately when Daniel explained what he had found. By the time she arrived, the sun was beginning to rise, painting the desert sky in shades of orange and pink. Together, they worked tirelessly to decode the signal. It wasn't easy. The message was complex, and parts of it seemed incomplete. But after hours of effort, they'd managed to translate fragments of it. What they discovered sent chills down their spines. The message wasn't just a random transmission. It was a warning. Something out there, far beyond Earth, was in trouble. And whatever it was, it posed a danger not only to itself, but possibly to others, including humanity. The two scientists knew they couldn't keep this to themselves. They contacted the government, sharing their findings with officials who initially dismissed them as overeager academics. But when astronomers around the world began noticing strange activity in the same region of space, people started to take notice. Gravitational anomalies, shifts in starlight, and other unexplained phenomena confirmed that something unusual was happening. News of the discovery spread quickly. At first, it was just whispers among scientists and researchers. Then journalists caught wind of it, and soon the entire world was talking about the mysterious signal. People speculated wildly about its origins. Was it aliens, a dying civilization, or something even more unimaginable? President Laura Hayes, a calm and decisive leader, called an emergency meeting with top advisors. She listened carefully as experts explained the situation. Though no one could say for sure what the signal meant, one thing was clear. Humanity needed to prepare for the worst. With her approval, a global coalition was formed. Countries put aside their differences and worked together to figure out how to respond. For Daniel and Rachel, the days that followed were a whirlwind. They were invited to join a team of scientists tasked with understanding the signal better. Every day brought new discoveries, but also new fears. What if the warning came too late? What if whatever was out there was already on its way to Earth? Despite the uncertainty, people around the world came together in ways they never had before. Volunteers offered their skills, whether it was building equipment, writing software, or simply comforting those who were scared. Even children did their part, drawing pictures of spaceships and aliens to hang in classrooms and hospitals. In the quiet moments, when Daniel looked up at the stars, he couldn't help but wonder, was humanity ready for what lay ahead? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain. The cry for help had been heard, and humanity was determined to answer it. The world had never seen anything like it. News of the mysterious signal spread quickly, and soon everyone was talking about it. Governments held emergency meetings, scientists worked around the clock, and ordinary people tried to make sense of what it all meant. The United Nations Space Initiative, UNSI, an organization that had been inactive for decades, was brought back to life. Its mission was clear: prepare humanity for whatever was coming. General Samuel Drake, a tough but fair leader, was put in charge of the effort. He knew time was short, so he wasted no time getting to work. Engineers, scientists, and soldiers were called in from all over the world. Factories that once made cars or appliances were converted to build spacecraft. Old ships were pulled out of storage and upgraded with new technology. It was a massive undertaking, but people were willing to do whatever it took. One of the key figures in the project was Emily Dawson, a young engineer known for her innovative ideas. She had spent years working on a new type of engine that could travel faster than anything humanity had ever built. Her design used advanced physics to bend space, allowing ships to cover vast distances in a fraction of the time. At first, many doubted her work, but when tests showed promising results, she was given full support. Emily worked tirelessly, often skipping meals and sleep, determined to finish the engine before it was too late. While the experts focused on building the fleet, ordinary citizens did their part as well. In cities and small towns, people came together to help however they could. Some volunteered at shelters, preparing for the possibility of an evacuation. Others donated money or supplies. Teachers explained the situation to students, encouraging them to stay hopeful. Even children pitched in, writing letters to astronauts and drawing pictures of spaceships to hang in community centers. But not everyone was united. Nathan Brooks, a wealthy businessman, saw the crisis as an opportunity to make money. His company, StarTech Industries, began selling survival kits and overpriced equipment to panicked buyers. When he announced plans to build a massive orbital defense platform called the Shield, many cheered. However, others grew suspicious. Whistleblowers revealed that Brooks intended to charge governments exorbitant fees to use the platform, sparking outrage. Amid the chaos, grassroots movements emerged. Maria Alvarez, a schoolteacher turned activist, organized rallies to demand transparency and fairness. She reminded people that humanity's strength lay in unity, not division. Her speeches inspired thousands to join her cause, and protests erupted in major cities around the world. As the weeks turned into months, progress was made. Dozens of ships were built and launched into orbit, forming a fleet ready to face whatever lay ahead. Pilots trained tirelessly, learning how to operate the new vessels. Soldiers prepared for combat, though no one knew exactly what they would be fighting. Scientists continued to study the signal, hoping to learn more about its origins. Finally, the day came when the fleet was ready. Captain Benjamin Foster, a seasoned astronaut chosen to lead the mission, stood aboard the Odyssey *, the flagship of the fleet. As he looked out at the rows of ships surrounding him, he felt a mix of pride and fear. Humanity had achieved something incredible in such a short time, but the stakes were higher than ever. With a final message of encouragement broadcast to the world, the fleet set off into the unknown. Millions watched on screens as the ships disappeared into the darkness of space. For better or worse, humanity had taken its first step toward answering the cry for help. What awaited them, no one could say. But one thing was certain: they were no longer alone in the universe. The journey through space was long and tense. The fleet, led by Captain Benjamin Foster aboard the Odyssey *, traveled for weeks before reaching the source of the mysterious signal. Along the way, the crew worked hard to prepare for whatever they might find. Pilots practiced maneuvers, engineers checked and rechecked the ship's systems, and scientists studied the data they had gathered so far. Everyone knew this mission could mean life or death for humanity. When they finally arrived at the edge of a distant star cluster, what they saw left them speechless. Drifting in the cold emptiness of space was a massive alien ship, its surface scared and battered. It looked abandoned, but sensors showed faint signs of power still running inside. Captain Foster gave the order to investigate. A team, including Sarah Bennett, a skilled pilot, and Dr. Alan Parker, a physicist, boarded a smaller shuttle and approached the derelict vessel. As they stepped inside, the air felt heavy, almost suffocating. The walls were covered in strange symbols and glowing patterns that pulsed faintly, as if alive. The team moved cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. They soon found a large chamber filled with holographic displays. With Dr. Parker's help, they activated one of the projections. What they saw was both fascinating and horrifying. The hologram showed images of a thriving alien civilization, the Zorathians. They were tall, graceful beings with shimmering skin and elongated limbs. Their cities were breathtaking, filled with towering structures and advanced technology. But then the images changed. The Zorathians were under attack by something monstrous, a swarm of biomechanical creatures that consumed everything in their path. These creatures, later identified as the Voidborn, spread like a plague, leaving only destruction behind. Before the team could process what they had learned, they heard a faint sound. Following it, they discovered a survivor, a wounded Zorathian lying in a dimly lit corner. His name was Kale, and though he was weak, he managed to communicate telepathically. Through fragmented thoughts and images, he shared more about the Voidborn. They were not just mindless machines. They were intelligent, driven by a single purpose: to grow and consume. And now, they were heading toward Earth, drawn by the very signal humanity had received. Kale warned the team that time was running out. The Voidborn were faster than anyone had imagined, and their arrival would spell doom for Earth and countless other worlds. He begged them to warn their people and prepare for battle. Though they wanted to help him recover, Kale insisted there was no time. He transferred crucial knowledge about the Voidborn into their devices and urged them to leave immediately. Back on the Odyssey, the crew processed what they had learned. Kale's warnings weighed heavily on everyone. Captain Foster called an emergency meeting with his advisors. Together, they decided to head back to Earth as quickly as possible. The fleet turned around, racing against time to deliver the news. During the journey home, the crew struggled with their emotions. Sarah spent hours staring out the window, wondering if her family would be safe. Dr. Parker pored over the data Kale had given them, searching for any weakness in the Voidborn. Captain Foster tried to stay strong for his team, but even he couldn't shake the feeling of dread. When they finally reached Earth, the news they brought was met with shock and fear. Governments scrambled to prepare defenses, while ordinary people braced for the worst. Humanity had faced many challenges before, but nothing like this. The Voidborn were coming, and the entire galaxy trembled at the thought of their arrival. Back on Earth, the news of the Voidborn spread like wildfire. Governments held emergency meetings, trying to decide what to do. Some leaders wanted to focus on building defenses, while others thought it was better to evacuate as many people as possible. The United Nations Space Initiative, UNSI, worked day and night to prepare for the worst, but tensions were high. Everyone had different ideas, and not everyone agreed. Nathan Brooks, the billionaire CEO of StarTech Industries, saw this as his chance to make a name for himself. He announced plans to build a massive orbital defense platform called the Shield. He claimed it would protect Earth from the Voidborn and give humanity a fighting chance. At first, many people supported him. They believed he was a hero, stepping up when the world needed help the most. But soon, whispers of doubt began to spread. Whistleblowers came forward, revealing that Brooks wasn't doing this out of kindness. His real goal was profit. He planned to charge governments enormous sums of money to use the shield, making himself even richer. When the truth came out, outrage erupted. Protesters gathered outside StarTech's headquarters, holding signs that read, "No profits from fear," and "Unity over greed." Brooks tried to defend himself, but the damage was done. People lost trust in him, and his project was put on hold. Amid the chaos, grassroots movements gained strength. Maria Alvarez, a schoolteacher turned activist, became a voice for ordinary people. She traveled across the country, speaking at rallies and urging humanity to come together. "We're stronger when we work as one," she told crowds. Her words inspired thousands to volunteer their time, skills, and resources. Communities organized food drives, built shelters, and taught survival skills. Even children joined in, collecting supplies and writing letters to soldiers and astronauts. Military strategists, meanwhile, worked on plans to fight the Voidborn. General Samuel Drake led the effort, coordinating with scientists and engineers to develop new weapons and tactics. Pilots trained tirelessly, practicing maneuvers in simulators. Soldiers prepared for ground combat, though no one knew if they'd ever set foot on an alien battlefield. Despite their efforts, everyone knew the odds were against them. The Voidborn were powerful, and humanity's technology was still far behind. Dr. Alan Parker, the physicist who had been part of the team to investigate the Zorathian ship, spent long hours studying the data Cal had provided. He worked alongside Emily Dawson, the engineer who had designed the fleet's advanced engines. Together, they searched for a weakness in the Voidborn. Days turned into nights as they ran simulations and tested theories. Finally, they discovered something promising. The Voidborn's energy source seemed unstable. If they could disrupt it, they might be able to destroy the swarm. Their discovery gave people hope, but it also came with a cost. Disrupting the Voidborn's energy source would require getting close to the heart of the swarm, a suicide mission. No one spoke about it openly, but everyone knew someone would have to make the ultimate sacrifice. As the days passed, the world braced for impact. Cities fortified their defenses, and families said tearful goodbyes. Shelters filled with refugees, and hospitals prepared for the worst. Despite the fear, there were moments of courage and kindness. Strangers helped each other, sharing food and offering comfort. Stories of bravery spread, reminding people of their resilience. In space, the UNSI fleet stood ready. Captain Benjamin Foster and his crew prepared for battle, knowing they might not return. Sarah Bennett, one of the pilots, wrote letters to her family, leaving them behind in case the worst happened. Dr. Parker continued refining his plan, determined to give humanity a fighting chance. The Voidborn were coming, and the galaxy trembled. But humanity refused to give up. United by fear and determination, they prepared to face the greatest threat they had ever known. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain: they would not go down without a fight. The moment humanity had been dreading finally arrived. The Voidborn entered the solar system, their glowing red swarm spreading across the darkness like a disease. From Earth, people watched in horror as the sky filled with strange lights. News channels broadcast live updates, showing images of the alien threat moving closer and closer. Panic spread quickly, but amidst the fear, humanity's defenses sprang into action. The UNSI fleet, led by Captain Benjamin Foster aboard the Odyssey *, launched its first line of defense near Jupiter. Dozens of ships formed a protective barrier, their weapons aimed at the approaching swarm. Pilots like Sarah Bennett and Michael Torres prepared for battle, their hands steady on the controls despite the knot of fear in their stomachs. The Voidborn moved silently, their movements precise and mechanical, as if they were driven by a single mind. When the order came to engage, the human fleet opened fire. Lasers and missiles streaked through space, striking the Voidborn drones. For a brief moment, it seemed like the attack was working. Explosions lit up the void as several drones were destroyed. Cheers erupted among the crew members, but their celebration was short-lived. The Voidborn adapted almost instantly, shifting their formations and countering with devastating precision. Their attacks overwhelmed the human ships, tearing through shields and hulls with terrifying efficiency. On board the Odyssey *, Captain Foster shouted orders, trying to keep his team focused. "Stay calm. Follow the plan," he yelled over the chaos. But even he couldn't hide the worry in his voice. Ships around them were falling one by one, their crews lost in the endless void. Sarah clenched her jaw, pushing her ship to its limits as she dodged enemy fire. Her heart pounded as she realized how outmatched they were. The Voidborn weren't just stronger, they were smarter. Back on Earth, people huddled together, watching the battle unfold on screens. Families prayed, holding each other tightly. In shelters, children cried while volunteers tried to comfort them. Despite the grim situation, there were moments of hope. Stories of bravery spread as pilots sacrificed themselves to protect others. One pilot, Lieutenant Chloe Ramirez, deliberately crashed her damaged ship into a group of Voidborn drones, clearing a path for her teammates to retreat. Her sacrifice became a symbol of courage, inspiring those still fighting. Meanwhile, Dr. Alan Parker worked feverishly to implement his plan. He had designed a device called the Quantum Disruptor, which could destabilize the Voidborn's energy source, but deploying it would require getting dangerously close to the heart of the swarm, a mission no one expected to survive. Volunteers stepped forward, knowing the risks. Among them were Chloe's best friend, Emily Dawson, the engineer who had helped design the fleet's engines, and Dr. Ethan Cole, who had assisted Parker in developing the disruptor. The team boarded the Eclipse Asterisk, a small but fast ship equipped with the quantum disruptor. As they approached the swarm, they faced wave after wave of relentless attacks. The cockpit shook violently as explosions rocked the ship. Emily gripped her seat, her knuckles white, while Ethan monitored the disruptor systems. "We're almost there," he said, though his voice wavered. Outside, the Voidborn closed in, their glowing red eyes locking onto the Eclipse Asterisk. Captain Foster and the remaining fleet did everything they could to distract the Voidborn, drawing their attention away from the Eclipse Asterisk. It was a desperate gamble, but it bought the team precious time. With seconds to spare, Emily activated the disruptor. A burst of energy surged outward, targeting the swarm's core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Voidborn began to collapse inward, consumed by their own unstable power. The crew of the Eclipse Asterisk barely escaped before the swarm imploded, disappearing into a blinding flash of light. Cheers erupted across Earth as the threat dissipated. But the victory came at a cost. The Eclipse Asterisk was lost, and its brave crew became heroes whose names would never be forgotten. Though the immediate danger had passed, the scars of battle remained. Humanity had survived, but the galaxy would never be the same again. The battle was over, but the cost weighed heavily on everyone. The Voidborn were gone, destroyed by the quantum disruptor's energy surge. Yet the victory felt hollow. The UNSI fleet had suffered tremendous losses, and the brave crew of the Eclipse Asterisk had made the ultimate sacrifice. Lieutenant Chloe Ramirez, Dr. Ethan Cole, and Emily Dawson were among those who didn't return. Their names echoed across Earth, spoken with both sorrow and pride. They had saved humanity, but their absence left a void that could never be filled. Back on Earth, people struggled to process what had happened. In cities and small towns, memorials were set up to honor the fallen. Flowers, candles, and handwritten notes covered public squares as families and friends mourned their loved ones. Schools held moments of silence, and children learned about the heroes who had given everything to protect them. Though sadness lingered, there was also gratitude. Humanity had faced extinction and survived, a fact that gave people hope for the future. President Laura Hayes addressed the world in a heartfelt speech. Standing before a crowd of survivors, she spoke of resilience and unity. "We have faced the darkness and emerged stronger," she said. "This is not just a victory for one nation or one group. It is a victory for all of us. Let us remember those we lost and honor their sacrifice by building a better tomorrow." Her words resonated deeply, reminding people of the strength they had shown when it mattered most. Amid the mourning, life slowly began to return to normal. Refugees left shelters, returning to their homes. Factories reopened, and farmers went back to their fields. But the scars of the battle remained. Many carried physical injuries, while others bore emotional wounds that would take time to heal. Therapists and counselors worked tirelessly to help survivors cope with their trauma. Support groups formed, bringing people together to share their stories and find comfort in each other's company. In space, the surviving members of the UNSI fleet returned home as heroes. Captain Benjamin Foster and his crew were greeted with cheers and applause, but their faces showed little joy. They had lost too many friends and comrades. Sarah Bennett, one of the pilots, found it hard to celebrate. She visited her family, but even surrounded by loved ones, she couldn't shake the memories of the battle. At night, she stared at the stars, wondering if they had truly defeated the Voidborn or merely delayed a greater threat. Kale, the Zorathian survivor, played a key role in humanity's recovery. He shared knowledge about his civilization, teaching humans how to rebuild what the Voidborn had destroyed. Through telepathic communication, he explained advanced technologies and offered guidance on interstellar diplomacy. His presence reminded humanity that they were not alone in the universe, that cooperation between species was possible. As weeks turned into months, humanity began to look forward. The United Nations Space Initiative evolved into a permanent alliance, dedicated to exploring space and defending against future threats. Engineers and scientists worked on new projects, inspired by the innovations born from the crisis. Schools added courses on astronomy and alien cultures, encouraging the next generation to dream big. But perhaps the greatest change was in the way people treated each other. The fear of extinction had brought out both the best and worst in humanity, but ultimately, it had strengthened their bonds. Neighbors helped neighbors. Strangers became friends. People realized how fragile life was and vowed to cherish it. One evening, Daniel Carter, the astrophysicist who had first detected the signal, stood outside his observatory. He looked up at the stars, reflecting on everything that had happened. The journey had been long and painful, but it had also been transformative. Humanity had answered a cry for help, proving that even in the face of unimaginable danger, they could rise to the occasion. The galaxy had trembled, but humanity had stood firm. And though challenges lay ahead, Daniel knew one thing for certain. The stars no longer seemed so distant. Months after the battle with the Voidborn, life on Earth began to change in ways no one had expected. The scars of the fight were still visible. Broken cities, empty homes, and families forever altered. But there was also a sense of renewal. Humanity had faced its darkest hour and emerged stronger. People now looked to the stars not with fear, but with hope. The universe was no longer a distant mystery. It was a place they belonged to, a place where they could make a difference. Kale, the Zorathian survivor, became a bridge between humanity and other alien civilizations. With his help, humans learned about the vast network of species scattered across the galaxy. Some had suffered under the Voidborn, while others had barely escaped their destruction. Together, they formed an alliance, a coalition of survivors determined to rebuild what had been lost and protect each other from future threats. Kale served as an ambassador, teaching humans about diplomacy and cooperation. His presence reminded everyone that unity was their greatest strength. The United Nations Space Initiative, UNSI, transformed into the Galactic Alliance, a permanent organization dedicated to exploring space and defending against dangers like the Voidborn. Under the leadership of General Samuel Drake, humanity built new ships, faster and more advanced than ever before. Engineers like Emily Dawson's former team continued to innovate, using knowledge shared by Kale and other aliens to push the boundaries of science. Pilots trained for missions beyond the solar system, ready to venture into uncharted territory. Back on Earth, ordinary people embraced this new chapter in human history. Schools taught children about the stars, encouraging them to dream of becoming astronauts, scientists, or diplomats. Artists painted murals of the Eclipse asterisk and its brave crew, turning their sacrifice into symbols of courage and hope. Even music changed, with songs celebrating the heroes who had saved the planet and the unity that followed. Nathan Brooks, the billionaire who had tried to profit from the crisis, faded into obscurity. His plans for the Shield were abandoned, and public outrage forced him to step away from politics. Meanwhile, grassroots leaders like Maria Alvarez gained recognition for their efforts to unite humanity. Maria traveled the world, speaking at conferences and inspiring others to work together. Her message was simple: the challenges ahead would require everyone's best effort, and no one should be left behind. Scientists kept studying the Voidborn, analyzing the data collected during the battle. Dr. Alan Parker led the research, determined to understand how the creatures had evolved and why they posed such a threat. Though the Voidborn were gone, he warned that similar dangers might exist elsewhere in the galaxy. Humanity needed to stay vigilant. As the years passed, humanity's role in the universe grew. Explorers ventured to distant planets, making contact with new civilizations. Trade routes opened, and cultures exchanged ideas, art, and technology. Earth became known as a beacon of resilience, a species that had faced extinction and risen above it. The galaxy watched with respect, knowing that humanity was no longer just a small part of the cosmos. They were active participants. One night, Daniel Carter stood outside his observatory once again. He looked up at the stars, feeling a deep sense of peace. The journey had been long and painful, but it had also been transformative. Humanity had answered a cry for help, proving that even in the face of unimaginable danger, they could rise to the occasion. Children around the world dreamed of traveling to the stars, inspired by the stories of bravery and sacrifice. They drew pictures of spaceships and aliens, imagining themselves as explorers and peacemakers. Families gathered to watch rocket launches, cheering as humanity reached further into the unknown. Though the memory of the Voidborn lingered, it no longer brought fear. Instead, it served as a reminder of what humanity could achieve when united. From that day forward, the universe trembled, not with fear, but with respect, for the species that had risen to meet its destiny. And as Daniel gazed at the endless expanse above, he knew the adventure was only beginning.